guys. Nikhil and I were just discussing, and I realized that we look at the same website in a very different way. We're recording this quick video, very rough video on how we'll just look at the same website in four different ways. First, as a brand strategist. Second, as a demand gen leader or a demand gen person. The third one as a brand identity designer, and the fourth one as an SEO person. It's going to be the exact same page, but how four different marketing people view the website. Cool. Nikhil, do you want to start?
That's fun. Cool. So, like, of course, this is a very rough form of the website, not even like in the stage of completing the wireframes. But let me just go through from a brand strategic point of view, like how we as a brand strategist go and like understand a website, and how do we take insights from the strategy discussion that we had. Like we had multiple calls and we just finalized a few things, and then we kind of know what has to be put on this website. So
Yeah.
if I think on the first fold, what are you calling out here? So what I think from it is like when we have thought of the brand, like internal brand of a company, which is basically a combination of your purpose, mission, values, and your vision. So all these things get defined in your first call, or first few calls in the strategy discussion. Now, people might keep it in your about section, might keep in what is my company, but they don't know that that's the thing that actually makes your first copy that you're calling out here. Like we're talking about, when we kind of found out this copy, which is strategic marketing for high growth B2B companies. This was basically Ishan's vision statement or the mission statement when we're thinking in those strategic calls. So you have to think on that term. Like this is somewhat like coming from those strategy discussion, internal brand conversation. We're just finalizing a few things, and you won't even feel that okay, you're actually finalizing a copy there for your website, but that's getting out there itself. So that's a first fold, and that's why it's important you to discuss the internal brand, which is basically, again, I'm repeating, purpose, mission, vision, and your values, which will help you actually clear out what you want to show as the first thing to your users, and how do you want to be like telling it out from your tone and voice and stuff. I think that's what I feel the first thing is. Now, the entire website from a brand strategy point of view is a journey of like answering questions on why, how, what, or like all those WH and how statements. So this is basically is the first one is a what. Like, okay, if you like if the person, your target audience has come from a journey of like they maybe chose, okay, someone referred to them to your website. They came there and they were like, okay, let me just see what it is. So you're actually answering a what statement, the first part. Then they're like, okay, they might be getting interested, okay, but how do they do it? So the next things like they go into like how. And of course, the best way to start your how is like tell them that okay, you've done it in the past. And that's how you see people put their testimonials or logo in the first half, on the first foot. They're like, okay, let me start answering a how statement with some of the examples. Okay, I did this for this by doing this. That's like you're answering a how statement, but actually putting credibility is there. Moving on to the other parts, people maybe position their pains or they have some very high level view. It's still very rough right now, Ishan, and I'm still thinking on what we need to put it here. But it's from my perspective, this will capture the more essence of how and why now. Like why this person is there and why do we want to partner with us. So I'm trying to answer the why questions here from, again, coming from those values. I can position myself differently from the values that I finalized in my call, my visions that I finalized. And I can clear out here. Again, bring it out your testimonial again. Why not? Like it's just like clearing out the why statement that okay, someone looked at my website, someone actually understood my values, and they were able to sustain this entire thing. And then you go into detail, like why like the simple school, when you think of school language, like school questions, why, and tell us why do you want to, like yes or no, and tell the why. That's why if you know have chosen Spear Growth as a company, why do you want to choose Spear Growth as a company? Then you have like the actual services there. And finally ending with the strategy, like the CTA, which is letting them know, okay, you can now approach me. I think that's how a brand strategist looks at a website. Like they try to familiarize it with a lot of things when you're finalizing a strategy discussion.
Yeah. So two things that were extremely interesting to me were that first, Nikhil and I had I think almost 6 hours of discussion on the
Yeah.
brand strategy. And apart from the discussion, we had a lot of work that both of us did, especially Nikhil, to come and create a brand strategy. Right. So a lot of the work happens before, or like a lot, most of the stuff that we did does not show up on the website, like most of it, right? And the second very interesting thing about this for me is that uh, I think Nikhil first thinks of the why statement before he thinks of everything else. Like when you were having the discussions, right? Nikhil wanted to add the why statement on the first fold. Like that's how he started, and then we sort of, in this version, we moved it down.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, those are like really two interesting things. Now, I will review the same website, but now from a generation person or leader perspective, right? So when I look at, again, one similarity is that even I am looking at things which, again, I'm not going to look at the website. First, I have defined the buyer's journey. I have defined exactly what do they know. When I say buyer's journey and buyer's persona, so those are the two things I define primarily, which means that exactly how do people come to the website. For example, in this case, so we're launching the website. There is no, I don't expect people to come to our website through organic or anything for a year, right? So either they'll come through referrals, social, or person to person word of mouth referrals, right? Not referral traffic. So in all of those cases, they already know about us. So another thing that I think of is how much do they know about us and how much do they know about the industry. And if they already know about the industry or the services, then I won't include those things, right? So that's what I'm thinking in the back of my mind. And then obviously, what do they like and everything that comes in the buyer's persona, and the buyer journey is more like the story of exactly like a more day to day buyer journey instead of like the IDA or whatever,
Yeah.
or all those like frameworks that you look at, right? So that's how I'm looking at the buyer journey. Now, when I look at the website, so after I have those things in my mind, then once I look at the website, I'm trying to look at three or four things, right? So the first one is, are they making the right assumptions? For example, when someone comes to my website, I want them to make the right assumptions, like everything from what exactly do we do, what kind of, how do we work, right? What capacity do we work in? What would be our pricing, right? So all of the, even though we haven't mentioned a lot of things, a lot of those things get communicated just by how the website looks like. So the most important thing for me is like, are they making the right assumptions? That is the first thing. The second thing for me, otherwise, if they make the wrong assumptions, then the rest of the copy is sort of just fighting to change the assumptions back to the correct one, and then it's just like waste of effort, right? So that is the first thing. Second thing, do they know how we are different, right? So in this case, the strategic marketing for high growth B2B companies, and then the CTA bar at the bottom does these two things very well, right? Um, the third thing is basically, I want to know where do I want to, what do I want them to do. So in this case, I want to either tell them about the three things that we do: strategic SEO, we provide extended demand gen services, and then we even help like startups launch their company. So I want to people to understand like what are the three things we do. If they want to read more about that, I want to guide them to a place where they go, where they can get more information about that. Otherwise, the primary thing I want them to do is to schedule a call with me for now, right? So this, again, this section does these things really well. Now the fourth thing and the last thing that I want them to do is, again, then obviously there's like uh, the fourth thing that I do is basically, can I get them excited about solving the problem? So when someone comes to the website, they have a problem, so I want to almost motivate them to solve the problem, right? And that actually gets, that's how I'm thinking of the pain section, or whatever that section would be. Nikhil is thinking about the why part. And I think it's going to, the output is going to be exactly the same, but I am thinking
Yeah.
about how do I motivate them to solve the problem, not to hire us, but to solve the problem that they have, right? And the last thing is like CRO, and everyone knows about CRO. Like is the button in the right places? Do we have enough social proof? And all of that comes is that's like the last thing that I look at. So that's how a demand gen person usually should look at a website, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it basically, and then we have like put in for the rest of it is just for like the things
Yeah.
that I mentioned, right? We just have like scattered it across the website. We've made sure CTAs are there, and obviously a lot of this will change. So yeah, that's all I have for the demand gen bit.
Yeah, it's of course it's answering the same questions, it's just from a different like way up, different approaches, but you have the final answer is the
Yeah,
same thing. But it's
yeah,
of course
output is
it
exactly
helps
the
you.
same.
Yeah, it helps you actually like uh, cross verify your website in from a two different places, and that like
Yeah,
you're going in the right direction. If you're able to
yeah,
kind of go from the branding part of you, whatever you've done in past, it's aligned with that, and plus like the entire thing that you called, I thought it was like a future proof. Like, are you future proofing your website from a technical point of view? Why this website is being built? And I was cross verifying that the strategy that we discussed has we been like with in line with that.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Cool. So I think I
So
can of course
we
talk
want to take
about
it
the
out from the
identity.
design. Yeah, the design identity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think of course we once we did the strategy discussion, we kind of started working on the identity part. Like, what will Speargrowth look like as a human or as a persona? What will start we looking at? What the design element, what the colors, typography, all those stuff that comes in. And we kind of course, I have it on here itself. So this was the final, what we call as stylescape or brand plate, whatever you want to call. But this is what basically looks like. It is not your final design. This is not your final something like your final website or your final ads. This is basically
Yeah.
if I call it, okay, how will Spear Growth be or exist in the branding space among the competitor? If you think it as a one tab or a one billboard, how will like Spear Growth look like? So it's kind of talks in that way, the colors, typography, and other stuff.
Yeah.
And this we got finalized first. Now, from an identity point of view, this helps you define any or like cross-platform, cross-marketing assets that you create from a design point of view. This will help you. This will guide you. So what I have started from on the website part, I then channel all these colors, typography, and stuff in the website. Now the only thing in the background is you need not go overwhelmed with that. You have,
Yeah.
of course, you have done a lot of stuff on that stylescape, but it does not mean that you need to use everything like it's like a
Yeah.
compulsory stuff. I use circles or elements there, but I haven't used anywhere right now because I didn't find it like a perfect place for doing it. Maybe the element might change, but I know the at least the colors, the tone, the amount of design elements, the amount of white space. I understood that like how we need to go ahead with that. The photographs,
Yeah.
the use of stuffs, the gradients. I understood that, and that's how I'm started to take up on this website. Like how much of these elements will take up in the comparison of white spaces, how much the
Yeah.
text will take up, what type of text. Like if I'm talking about proofs, then I've like commented here for Ishan that I would want here to be like Slack messages. Like if I want to talk about result, I would talk about Slack messages because I feel that he does a lot of Slack messages and Trello stuff type of thing. It's more like if I say I'm result oriented, the design element should be from a Slack
Yeah.
or from a project planning software compared to just writing, okay, I'm a result oriented guy. I'm like focus on 90% of SEO. So
By the way, this is the
that's
first time I'm also hearing the Slack thing. So
yeah. That's how you think of designing and merging it with a brand strategy. You want to
yeah.
play with the founder's vision, you play want to with the company's vision, how they do stuff, and then you want to praise all your design. I just talked with Ishana on this. I think the last thing that I want to call about identity, but this is the recent thing that I found out. These graphics, if you see, I don't know if you know Ishan personally, you will feel like these are Ishan. Like this is Ishan looking like at a website and he's trying to solve the SEO stuff. This is Ishan, he's trying to like mingle with the person and he's talking on like a team and he's trying to like merge into that team. This is Ishan going for the market strategy, like out of the box thinking. Now, there's a very interesting story for this also. Maybe Ishan will tell his part
Yeah.
of it. But for me, it was like an out of the box thinker who Ishan is, and he thinks the strategy in that way. So
Yeah.
your identity needs to be very much aligned with the founders and the brand that you've discussed. That's something
Yeah.
that I think when I'm planning out design.
Even the same icon, I thought that he meant when he showed it to me. I thought he's talking about because it's GTM, right? We help startups launch. Like we do strategy and execution for startups and people, or like when someone wants to start their demand gen journey. So I thought that's what's coming out of the box. I was thinking from a company side, because that's what's in my mind, and I think that's one major difference, that I'm thinking more of the like, so I think of the audience first and us second. And so even when like Nikhil is thinking, he has derived our identity from the audience, and then he starts thinking from us
Yeah,
first, I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Right?
So
Yeah.
I think the only statement here is there is nothing wrong in the way you think. Like there is, you can take a
Yeah.
very different approach compared to us even. Like you can think a very different approach to come to this design. But I think it's just
Yeah.
you need to think you're actually taking off at least the basics. That is audience, your brand, your goals that you have set. And we have just
Yeah.
kind of tried to illustrate that from a different way. I think you can take
So
over, Ishan, now.
I think I can talk about the SEO bit now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Can you scroll to the top?
yeah,
Cool. So here, if I look at which keywords I would want to rank for, right? Again, we haven't done it yet, so I'm just literally spitballing it at the moment. But which keywords would my buyer person, or like, okay, so for example, which stage of the buyer journey do I want people to come to my homepage, right? So basically, the homepage usually attracts people across the buyer journey, usually, right? Because it's the homepage. It was, if it was like a service page, then I know that people either when they have a problem, or when they're trying to solve something, right? In the end, towards the end of the buyer journey, that's when they're coming there. So all the keywords, the organic keywords, also I would look at keywords at the end of the buyer journey. If it was the homepage, or sorry, it was, if it was a blog or a resource page, I might, again depending on the resource, I might think of maybe at the start of the buyer journey, right? So I would first pick my keywords without again without looking at the website. I think that's the common theme. We don't look at the website first. So I would first try to figure out what the keywords are. For me, I think we still have to somehow, by the way, note, we have to somehow write agency somewhere, at
yeah,
least on the website. Somewhere you have to write agency,
yeah. I
because
think
we
we need
are
to
an
somewhere.
agency.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll fix that. But yeah, we have to first figure out, like, are we if we're a marketing agency or marketing for B2B companies, right? These are keywords I would want to rank for, and I'm looking at, okay, the H1 should have that, the meta title would have that, right? When we scroll down, what are some other things, right? We are doing SEO, we are doing demand generation. So since we're writing demand generation as demand gen, at some point of time I would also write the complete thing as demand generation. Since we are writing JTM, at some point of time, in the text I would mention go to market strategy, the entire thing, right? So now from an SEO perspective, we then start thinking about, okay, which keywords do we really want to get into, and then I would link from the keywords. For example, can you scroll down to the section where we're talking about the individual? Yeah, here when we'll probably be adding CTAs to individual page, or links to individual pages. Now I'll try to maybe just link the H2 directly, or the headers I will directly want to link it to the individual pages, because the link text will be the right thing, and I want that page to rank for this keyword instead of the home page. So now when I'm looking at the same thing from an SEO perspective, I'm looking at a completely different thing, right? It's
Yeah,
still the same page, which was amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. Like, it was mind blowing for me, because did not think of it of how Nikhil thinks. I don't think of it in the same way, but the results were so similar. Like, we were thinking of the same things.
Yep.
But yeah, we just, I think, miss out a few things, right? So that's it. Hope that was helpful. Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
that's
Connect to
why
us.
it's important to, like, of course, go in that journey. Why this video helps
Yeah.
you understand why is brand strategy important, why is marketing strategy important, and why they should play with together when you're thinking of branding and other stuff, like actually
Yeah.
marketing
Yeah.
your product or service.
Yeah. Both are important, because otherwise, for example, we might have missed a few things when we're
Yeah.
looking at it from different directions. That is really, really interesting. If you have any questions, I think just search our names on LinkedIn. You should find them, right? Like, just search for Nikhil or Ishan. And also, if we have posted this somewhere, I'm sure I would have linked to our profiles. And if Nikhil has posted, he'll link to our profiles. So connect with us. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Cool. Yeah. Bye
And this
bye.
was very raw video, guys.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.